Hi, I'm Cynthia Nichols, the Regional Public Engagement Specialist for the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. Thank you for joining us on today's Views from Ukraine, where we'll be discussing the topic of children. After 45 minutes, our panelists will go to private breakout rooms to answer questions from the media in attendance. As a reminder, the panel is recorded and streamed on Embassy Kyiv's social media, but the breakout rooms are not. All conversations are on the record. If you are in our main Zoom session, please remember to mute your microphones and turn off your cameras. Just like all our Views from Ukraine programs, the statements of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the position of the US government. This program is designed to give Ukrainians an opportunity to speak for themselves on important topics. One such topic is what we're covering today. Russia's unprovoked war in Ukraine has caused immense damage and affected everyone in Ukraine, but it has particularly profound impact on Ukraine's children. In the past year, thousands of Ukrainian children have been deported or relocated to Russia or Russian-controlled territories for so-called re-education. We have some distinguished guests with us today. First, we have Mykola Kuleba, who is the CEO of Save Ukraine and the former Ombudsman for Children with the President of Ukraine from 2014 through 2021. We will also have Lesya Zaburrana, a member of the Ukrainian Parliament. I want to thank you all for being here today. Today's topic is difficult and sensitive, so we'll try to approach it with the utmost care. Mykola, I believe you have some special guests for us and something to show us. So I'm going to hand it over to you for just a couple of minutes so you can make some introductions for us, and then we'll get started with our questions.
Hello, everyone. Here with me, Nastya and several other kids. And just now we in Hope and Healing Center of Save Ukraine NGO, and several kids are now from who was deported to Russia Federation, and through our rescue mission, we returned them back. And Nastya was in this group, and they stay now in our Hope and Healing Center. And we have a special program here for children from our Hope and Healing Center. It's a trauma therapy and education and a meal every day for displaced families and children. All of these kids are from occupied territories, from liberated territories of Kharkiv and Kherson region, and especially several of them who was rescued during our last rescue mission. And Nastya is 15 years old girl who lived there months in Crimea, where she was sent like to a camp, but it was deportation. And our organization Save Ukraine is specialized on rescuing children from combat zones and from occupied territories and Russia Federation. And during this war, we rescued close 80,000 children, and just only 44 of them. But this situation is horrible with Ukrainian kids because 20%, please remember this number, 20% of Ukrainian children now in Russia Federation or in occupied territory under the Russians. It's a horrible number. It's genocide. And I want to really inform you about this and raise awareness what happened with Ukrainian children.
Thank you, Mykola. Just so we can provide our guests a little bit, our audience, a little bit of background. Could you both lay out what exactly is happening? How and why is the Russian government separating children from their families and relocating them to Russia-occupied territories? Mykola, if you could touch on that, that would be.
Yeah, first of all, I'm so sorry for a noise because here is a lot of kids, and if you feel me, you hear me bad, tell me, and I can go to another room and
We'll
talk
keep
with
you
you.
informed, but the
But
joy of children
when we Okay. When we started our rescue mission in September, when our army liberated territories of Kherson and first Kharkiv region, and we recognized mothers, and we analyzed situation. Mothers reported, and we trying to understand why it happened, why Russia doing this, what is the goal of Russian government, and I can tell you some points why it happened. First, they are trying to compensate for their demographic loss. For every Russian soldier killed, 7 or 8 Ukrainian children were deported. Second, destruction of the Ukrainian ethnic group. Instead of killing Ukrainian children on the spot, they are abducted and re-educated. Third, illustrating propagandist narratives for the ordinary Russians. It's like one nation, or we are rescuing children from Ukrainian Nazis. And fourth, brainwashing children to send them to the next war with Ukraine. The 18, 20 years old soldiers from the so-called Donetsk and Lugansk Republic are currently fighting on the Russian side. 8 years ago, they were 10 or 12 years old children brainwashed by Russians and the occupation authorities. And the coordination of this process is being ensured at the highest political level. There is every reason to believe that such abduction of children has been planned. First, the kidnapping of Ukrainian children is controlled by Russia at the highest state level. On October 26, Maria Lvova-Belova, the Russian president's commissioner for children's rights, announced that she had adopted a boy kidnapped from Mariupol. Also, according to her words, during that period, 350 orphans from the east of Ukraine have been placed in fostering families in 16 regions of Russia. And secondary, the fact that the deportation campaign was planned is also confirmed. Ukrainians, including children, were taken to filtration camps before being distributed to the regions of Russia. After going through the filtration, they would find themselves in Russia, and process of their legislation for assimilation in the Russian environment would begin, especially through their procedures of establishing guardianship and consequential adoption. The Russian president simplified the process of granting Russian citizenship to Ukrainian children. And unsurprisingly, the process of adoption was simplified as well. That's why we cannot prove the fact of adoption of Ukrainian children, because Russians first make Ukrainian children the Russian citizens and then adopt them. And Nastya told me 3 days ago, after she came back, returned to Ukraine, that when first she was sent to one camp, it's like camp, and then she was relocated, and her mother trying to find her several months, and through social media she found her, and she told that in her last location in Crimea, oh no, it was occupied Kherson region, first Crimea and then Genechis occupied Ukrainian territory. and her caregiver forbid them to leave the facility. And one time she left the facility, and she bet her on her heir, and they forced them to study Russian language and study new history. And they try to force them to receive Russian citizenship, to tell her that if she will do this, they could send her to like mountains, to Ural Mountains. And when she will have 18, Russian government will give her flat to live. And she's telling this, and other children tell the same thing for us.
Thank you for sharing that, Mykola. That must have been a very harrowing experience. Lesya, could you touch on, there have been varying assessments on the scale of the abuses by the Russian government. In terms of children and how many children are involved with this, how many children have been deported or taken by Russians?
First of all, I would like to thank you very much for this discussion, for such important issue and topic for Ukraine now. And actually today I would like to discuss with you two main questions about the deportation of children and about the justice in this process. Russians have been deporting Ukrainian children since 2014 under the guise of an evacuation. The abducted children were later brainwashed, and now they wield weapons against their fellow Ukrainians, manipulated into fighting on Russia's side. As of February 8th, according to the Ukrainian state portal Diti Vini, Children of War, Russia deported about 16,000 children, 16,000. And we know that Russian soldiers, troops, also were killed about 1,000 of Ukrainian children. However, Russian media report a horrifying number of 712,000 deported Ukrainian children. We consider these children as deported according to the Article 7 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which says that the deportation and forcible transfer of person is a crime against humanity, which make it possible to qualify deportation as genocide of Ukrainian people according to the Article 2 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Also, we are grateful for a resolution recognizing Russian actions in Ukraine as genocide. 20% of Ukrainian children who are in Russia or in occupied regions live under the influence of Russian propaganda and Russification policy. It's a huge number. For those children who were deported to Russia, there's a threat of adoption because Russia gives these children Russian citizenship and then easily adopt them. Therefore, it will be extremely difficult to find these Ukrainian children in future. Ukrainian and the international community should take every measure possible to develop mechanisms for the return of Ukrainian children forcibly deported to the Russian Federation. And also, we are doing a lot of action in this sphere too. If we talk about the justice at whole, because all Ukrainian people now, all Ukrainian families, they want justice. Because when we met with our citizenships, they asked us about the crimes, not only the war crimes of Russian troops, but the crime of aggression The leader of this crime is Putin and top military and top political leaders in Russia. So in September last year, our President Volodymyr Zelensky established work group about the establishment special tribunal for the punishment top political and top military leaders in Russia in the crime of aggression. If we talk about the crime of aggression, it's the mother's crime. And we highly appreciate that now United States and all other countries support us in this issue. And we are going to establish this special tribunal, and I'm absolutely sure that it will help to prevent other crimes, other deporting of not only Ukrainian children, but from all children in the world.
Those numbers are quite staggering, and I think it's important. I think we can all agree that protecting children is extremely important. Is there any sort of list of children that have been taken away, or ways that parents can try to find their children? Lesya?
Yes, yes. It's through our local government in occupied or the-occupied regions and our ministry. They have such kind of list, but as I told you, we have a problem with the recognizing these children because because Russian gives these children Russia citizenship and then easily adopt them. So in future, it will be pretty difficult to identify these children. But now we have, as I told you, about 16,000 of cases which we know the families, the names of these children.
Going back to Mykola, what you said about the camps that these children are in, could you tell us a little bit more about the conditions that these children are experiencing in the camps?
Yeah, but first, here is two girls. If you can see these girls, yeah, can you see us? Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. And Lila and Alona, they also were in camp where became good friends. Russians forced them learn Russian language and history there. Their moms were looking for them and returned daughters home. Now Lila's mother went to Kherson to get to Kyiv her elder son with disability. We will meet her tonight on railway station. They will stay together at our Hope and Healing Center, where we provide a 3-month mental health recovery program for them. A condition of that camps facilities were not bad. Yeah, and children telling that first they were like friendly, feed them, and but they trying to like through their kindness to tell them Russia is good for you. You have to stay there. And when we have one mother who reached her son who played football, and his trainer forced him to sport camp, and when she reached that camp through maybe 1 week trip, and the director of that facility told her, why you think it is a camp? We evacuated your child from danger. We don't want to give him back. Get out, and we later you will be in Ukraine. And but for a child, I talked with that child. He played football. They feed them, but they trying to block any returns to Ukraine. During our last rescue mission, when we went back to Ukraine, they didn't allow us to cross the Russian-Belarus border in two points, and we spent 2 days there, and they told no, it's forbidden for you. With their children, with all documents, but they told that no, it's forbidden. And they third third border was with Latvia, and they spent 1 day there, and they checked everything of children, clothes, beds, bags, and they allow them to cross the border. That's for us, it's a crime when they trying to leave our children there. And you ask Lesya about how many kids. From 2014, we calculated Crimea, occupied territories, and Russian Federation. It's more than 1.5 million Ukrainian children who under the Russians. It is genocide.
Um, what kind of impact does this have for families and children, being separated, moving away from their homes, being forced to be re-educated by the Russian government? Mykola, what does that do with children, and what kind of services do you offer to help them readjust to being reunited?
Yeah, we have a model of three main directions. It is rescue. We provide rescue operation from combat zone, from occupied territories, from Russian Federation. And as I told you, more than 80,000 children and their parents were rescued. And every day our rescue teams work in combat zones. We have more than 60 different vehicles, armored cars, armored buses, ambulances. And the second direction is recovering programs. We have hope and healing centers for families with children. After evacuations, we send them to our hope and healing center, and we provide trauma therapy and recovering of these families for 3 months. It's a 3 month program. Yeah, we have centers for women and children who experience sexual abuse, and especially for abandoned elderlies. But it's our different program. But all our activities, it is for children and for families to reunite them, healing their traumas, and rebuild their life. This is our third main pillar. The three pillars: rescue, recover, and rebuild the life of families. And after rehabilitation or trauma healing, we send them to our for the home. It is shelters. We are building shelters. We build one shelter a day for a family. It's up to 4 people can live in very good condition of life with everything, because we equip these shelters with the kitchen, with the washing machine, with the shower, with beds, with plates, forks, with everything. And family who flee the war and lost their house was destroyed and they have nothing, they can live in that shelter during 1 year and more to find a job. And we financially support these families during this year. And our next program is community centers. We have 13 community centers, and several of these community centers is supported through USAID, and our hotline is supported with USAID. And in our virtually in our community center, where children every day come here from displaced families, from combat zones who were displaced from occupied territories or from Russian Federation. And here they can have meal, education, because it's huge loss of education. We have here children who had no education during last 2 years, and especially wartime, they had no education in occupied territories. That's why we have educational program, meal. We assess their needs, educational needs, mental health program, art therapy. They can spend all day with our caregivers, teachers, and have everything they need for this time. And then just now after this meeting, they will go back to the Hope and Healing Center to stay at night there with their parents, and tomorrow they will come back here.
It sounds like you've got some really great programs in place to help these children heal. Lesya, I have a question for you. Madam Zelenska's main priority with this war is helping families process this trauma. What has the government been working on to help these children and help them process what has happened to them?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that I highly appreciate Mykola's work, and maybe 1 month ago I visited one of his center, and I would like to say that really it's a huge work for the support our children. And I can also say that I felt that children in that center were really happy, and with great pleasure they discussed with us everything. So I saw that they have really very, very high quality of psychological support and also support in all needed issues. So I think that such kind of NGOs, such kind of people, activists, they really help us very much. And we also highly appreciate all international support for such kind of organization. So Mykola, thank you very much again for all your job. As we talk about the government support, as we talk about the initiative of Olena Zelenska, I would like also to say that our prosecutor office, our special work groups in the office of president, foundation of Olena Zelenska, they also trying to do a lot of work to help these kids and to help them on the occupied territories also. Of course, you know that now we have a huge deficit of state budget, but with the help of our international partners, we have some special programs for the adaptation, for the help these children in this sphere. And actually, I would like to tell you, if we talk with our American friends, that in this middle of March in New York, before the adoption of the resolution about special tribunal in UN, we will have a special exhibition in Ukrainian Institute where people can see some artifacts, some belongings of these children, and also they will have possibility to support this organization, such kind of Mykola's organization, other government programs to support these children, to provide them all psychological, material, and other help.
I'm so sorry. Can I add something? Yeah, and we to organize our rescue mission, and especially for documenting crimes, we worked with the law enforcement, with General Prosecutor Office, with Ombudsman for Human Rights, to receiving information not only through our rescue missions but with the law enforcement, what is so important for us, and we are carefully documenting these crimes. It is very important, yeah, for International Crime Court.
Absolutely. Let's shift for just a moment and talk about some of, Lesya, you mentioned the mis and disinformation that is being distributed by the Russian government. They are not denying the fact that Ukrainian children have been abducted, but they are calling it a, quote, humanitarian evacuation. And there's also been cases of this when that term has been used in Western media. As people devoted to this issue, what is important to you about how we collectively talk about this issue, and what kind of propaganda and disinformation is out there about these abductions?
Thank you for the question. Yes, propaganda is a huge issue for us. And when we talk about the evacuation, because of a big propaganda on the occupied territories, sometimes families, sometimes parents, they choose to go to Russia. And after that, they have all this process that Mykola mentioned. Sometimes when they went to Russia, they hadn't any possibilities to return to Ukraine. They hadn't any possibilities to have the official documents. So, because they believed that in Russia they will have more good future, and when they chose this way, after that they had a lot of problems. But of course, we talked a lot about propaganda, about the influence of propaganda on the territories, and we asked all Ukrainian people to remove from that territories to the Ukrainian territory, because when they move to the Ukrainian territory, we can protect them and we can help them to adopt here, and we can help them to have a really life in democratic world.
Thank you. Mykola, can you tell us another success story of how your organization has helped rescue some of these children?
But first, I want to add what Lesya told. Maria Lvova-Belova, the Russian President's Commissioner for Children's Rights, also made such statement. She said, there is no reason to accuse Russia of deporting children as evacuation is happening. It is essential to understand the situation in which our people were. It's military action, occupation, and life at gunpoint. People feared for their lives and the lives of their children. Yeah, and we have a lot of stories about children who were deported or about children who live in combat zone. Just yesterday, I met a family who was evacuated from combat zones from Kherson region with 5 kids and with their grandmother, with 2 parents, and they lived in the village there. And after the huge shelling, were outside, they were shelled and the explosion like hit them, and after that they were running, and our team took them and moved to our Hope and Healing Center. I met them in our center, and they are happy to stay there. And first of all, what they told, I told, what do you feel? They feel, we feel safety. It's like there we hear explosions every minute, but now we are safe, our children's safety, and soon, very soon, they will be able to go to school or to our day center. It's maybe some children older will go to school, some here. Yeah, and it is great opportunity to survive. On the one hand, on the other hand, they lost everything. We have to help them to start a new life in new territory, and we have a lot of such stories about families and children who lost their homes. But I want you to remember one data, that just only 50% of Ukrainian children's population live in Ukraine in controlled territories. And I told you 20% under the Russians in Russia and occupied territories, and close 30% all over the world. They were fleeing the war. And for us, it's extremely important to save their lives, to return them back as soon as possible. We understand it's dangerous now to live in because of the war, but we have to think now and and launch a program on the highest level for Ukrainian children. As we talked with Olena Zelenskaya, she's doing a great job to provide mental health program. But it's not only about her; it's about all our government, all ministries to unite, to be united and launch programs, and with your support, because as you give us a weapon to liberate our territories and to protect our country, we need your support to save our children, to recover them, to rebuild their lives, to give them education, to make them happy, because they're children. They want to be happy. And this girl and all of that children. And today in this center, um, U.S. ambassador in Ukraine and the deputy of a head of USAID and with a big group of people met these kids, and the ambassador talked with 8 years old boy. He's here, and she asked, "What are you dreaming for?" 8 years old boy told her, "I want to kill Putin. I want Putin die." And this boy worked with a Lego, and she asked, "What are you doing? What is this?" He told, "This is a flight aircraft. I want to fly and kill Putin." And I told her with him to tell this or something about this, but and she asked another kids, and they growing, they developing in a hate of Russia, and it is horrible of impact of this war, because
Yeah, the
children
loss of
should be
childhood
happy.
innocence.
And
So
could
many
I,
Ukrainian children
could I,
have lost their innocence.
yes, if it's,
Lesya.
yes, thank you very much. If it's possible, I could, I would like to add some figures. You asked us about the work, about the returning these children, and just now I found it a new statistic data that we have identified about 14,000 children who were abducted and deported by the Russian army. This is official statistic. You can see that it's a really, I'm sorry, that is a really huge data, and this is a really huge amount of our kids, and only 125 children have been brought back home. So, as Mykola told, we need your support in this process, and we need your support in the process of justice, because it's very important to remember that now Ukraine is fighting it not only for our territories, not only for Ukrainian children, but we are fighting it for all democratic values, and we are fighting it for all children in democratic world. So we will highly appreciate all your support in weapon, all your support in different resolution about genocide, war crimes, and of course your leadership in the establishment special tribunal, because it will be a very huge and important signal for all democratic world that justice will be for all crimes, for all crimes, and the most big crime, the crime of aggression. And we are working with you about this, and we will continue our really fruitful work in this sphere.
Thank you, Lesya. Mykola, final thoughts. Oh, I believe you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you.
There we go.
Several things. First of all, we are so grateful for your support, because as Lesya, who is big our supporter and supporter of Ukrainian children, and he's doing a great job to help to provide our programs, and we really need your support. Don't stop, please, supporting us. And our main goal is to let children live normal life and not to lose our generation. That's why we want to invite you to help to our programs, to any other program. It doesn't matter which region, which local community, government, non-government, but each child valued. Every child valued for us. We don't want lose any child, any life, and rebuild their lives. Help them live in Ukraine, in the independent country, to be Ukrainian, not to lose their identity, and grow in independent Ukraine. We want reflourish our country. That's why please help us. Do all children want to be happy? Thank you so much.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we're out of time for this part of our panel, but I would like to thank our panelists and our new friends at the Hope and Healing Center for their time today. The work that you're doing is on behalf of the children of Ukraine is so important. If the guests in our Zoom room would hold on for just a few minutes, our panel is going to switch from this platform to the Zoom, where you can join our panelists in the breakout rooms. Panelists, if you could go to the link that we gave you earlier, we'll let you into the next part of our discussion. And to everyone else, thank you again for watching Views from Ukraine. Please join us next Wednesday at the same time for another panel.